A WebSocket is a computer communications protocol where data can be simultaneously sent and received between a client and a server over a single long-lived connection. This is called full-duplex communication, enabling for real-time data exchange. This means WebSockets are great for bidirectional uses, such as chat applications, without the need for constant polling of a server. In this video, we'll be looking at how we can use WebSockets to create a chat application of our own using ExpressJS. So the first thing that we need to do is create the Express server. If you haven't already got Visual Studio Code loaded up, then please do that or go and install it. I'll leave a link to the installation in the description. And once you're here, just open a folder. You can see I've opened WebSockets, and then create a new terminal up here. Then once you've done that, all you have to write is npm init-y, and this is just going to initialize our package.json, and -y just means we're going to say yes to all the options. So now that's done, we can see that we've got our package.json, and what we're going to do in scripts is we're going to add a dev script. And inside here, we're just going to say nodemon index.js. Nodemon is just a package that's going to allow us to refresh the server when we save our project. So whenever we click save on a file, it's going to refresh our server for us. But in order to use nodemon, you need to install it first. So if you don't have it installed, just do npm install -g nodemon. -g means it's going to install it globally for all your projects. So this is a really useful thing to do if you're working on many different projects. Now what we need to do is just say npm install express. We also need to install path. Now that's done, you can see we've got these dependencies here. And now what we can do is create our index.js file. So now we've got this, we can start actually writing our Express server code. So the first thing that we need to say is const express equals require express. Then we're going to call this express function and say const app equals express. And then we can create our routes. But first we're just going to say const express port equals 3000. This means that we're going to be listening on port 3000, and that's the route that we have to go to. And then app.listen express port, and then we have a callback function which is going to tell us that it's worked fine. So we can just say express server on port and then the port name. Now we've done that, we can create a route up here as well. So we're just going to say app.get this route, request, response, and then inside here, we're going to say res.sendFile, path.join, __ directory name, comma, /index.html. We haven't created this HTML page yet, but we will do that in a minute. The other thing that we just need to do is say const path equals require path, because path is a library that we just installed. So it's one of the dependencies that we need to include in our project. So now what we're going to do is create the HTML file. So we're just going to say index.html. And now what we can do is an exclamation mark and then tab, and that's going to generate some basic HTML template for us. And we can just leave it like that. And then we're just going to say h1, and just say hello. Now what we can do is just run our server. So we can do npm run dev, and then we see Express Server on port 3000. Now if we come over here and reload the page, we see we get hello. So it's working fine. So now that we've got this, what we're going to do is start using WebSockets. So for the WebSockets, we're using this package, which is WS, an npm package. And if you want to look at this later on, then this gives you all the sort of information that you will need to get started using this package. And a lot of the code that we have in here, we're going to be including in our project as well. So what we're going to do now is just install that package. So we can say npm install ws. Now what we can say is const WebSocket server equals require ws. Now what we're going to say is const ws port, or WebSocket port, and then we're going to say 8080. Now we can say const WSS, which stands for WebSocket server, equals new WebSocket server. And here we have options, which are in the form of JSON, and we're just going to say port WS port. Now what we can say is WSS.on listening. Then we're just going to run this callback function, and it's going to say something very similar to the other one. We're just going to say WebSocket server on port, and then the WS port. Now what we can say is WSS.onConnection function WS. We're passing in WS because this is the client that's being connected. Then we can say WS.on error. So if there's a problem for whatever reason, we're just going to console console.error the error. So now what we can say underneath this is we're just going to say ws.on message. So when we receive a message, we're going to call this function, which has the data of the message, and we're just going to console.log data at the moment. And now that's all the things that we need to say for now. So we can save this, and what we are going to do now is trying to connect as a client. So if I go back into my HTML page, and then if I create a script, we're just going to have this script in the HTML for now, just to make it a bit easier for ourselves. Then what we can say is we want to connect when the page is loaded. So what we're going to do is we're going to say socket, or let socket, equal new WebSocket, and it's going to have a endpoint or URL of ws://localhost 8080. Then what we can say is socket.add event listener open. So when we open the socket, we're going to have an event, function event, and then in here, we're just going to say console.log connected to WebSocket server. Now what we can say is when we receive a message, .on or .add event listener message, then what we're going to say is we're going to have an event again, so function event, and inside here we're just going to console.log event.data. So I think we're going to start with that, and we're going to try and connect to this WebSocket. So we can npm run dev again. Then if we go back to our page, we can see we've got our hello here. If we go into inspect and then network and then refresh, we can see that we seem to be connecting to this WebSocket. But we don't have any data being transmitted yet. So that's something that we need to change. So one of the ways that we can do that is just here where we've got on open, we're going to send a message saying hello, for example. So the way that we do that is we can say socket.send and then just the string of data that we want to send. So I'm just going to say hello. So now if we go back here and refresh and click on here, we can see that we transmitted the data hello. And that happened basically as soon as we connected to the WebSocket. What we can also see is in our console, we've got this data coming back and it's as a buffer at the moment, but all that we need to do to make it a string is just say data.toString. And now if we save that, go back here, refresh the page, and go back here, we can see in the console we get hello. So that's the expected result that we wanted. So now we want to actually deal with some of the logic of our messaging application. So in here, in the index.js, we're going to change a few things. So we're going to keep the listening part, we're going to keep the connection part, but inside the message part here, we're going to change it a bit. So we're just going to say let JSON data, because we're going to be transmitting data for this, equal JSON.parse data. As we can't transmit data as objects, we have to transmit them as strings. We have to do JSON.stringify the data on one end, and then the inverse of that is JSON.parse. So we have to do that as well. So now what we can say is if JSON data.name, which means if we've got a name field passed back to us, then we're just going to say ws.name equal JSON data.name. Now what we're going to say is wss.clients.forEach. So we're going through each of the clients that are connected. We can put this in a function here and have each client. Now we can say if client.readyState is equal to WebSocket.open, and we need to import WebSocket here as well. There we go. If it's equal to WebSocket.open and ws.name is not equal to client.name, then we're going to transmit a message which says basically this person is joined. So we're just going to say client.send JSON.stringify announcement, and that announcement is just going to say ws.name has joined. And now if we save that, and if we have someone connect, we should get this message to everyone except the person who connected. But just to go back quickly, we have JSON and we're looking for a name field in our JSON, and that's going to happen when we first connect. We're going to send a message saying basically, hello, I'm whatever, person A. So if we have that, we're going to set their name to be that name field, and then we're going to go through all the clients and say person 1 has joined. So to actually implement this, all we have to do is say, instead of socket.send hello here, we're just going to say socket.send name is person A, and we need to JSON.stringify this. Now we've done that, if we reload the page, we can see that we're transmitting the name field, but as we don't have another client connected yet, then it's not going to do anything for us. And if we did create another client, they would have the same name at the moment. So we don't want that. A good way to do this would be with IDs, but we're just keeping it simple for now, just using names because it's a bit easier to deal with. And there's quite a bit of logic to do with whether someone's already in the system, basically. So we're not going to do that in this video. But what we are going to do is add a little bit more HTML. We're going to remove this hello, and we're just going to say input ID is name. Then we're going to say button on click equals connect. And we're just going to have connect here as the text. Then we're going to say input ID equals message. Then we're going to have button, and that's going to have on click send message. And we're just going to have send message here. So now if we reload this, we can see that we've got these fields here. So we can type in a name, and then we can connect, then we can send messages. So now what we're going to do is write the connect function, and we've done most of that already. So all I'm going to do is say let socket here, because we need to be able to access the socket from different scopes of the program. If we just have it in this connect function, then we're going to have issues with scope. So we can say function connect, and we're just going to put all of this in here basically. And now what we can say is function send message. And when we have this, we're just going to say let message equal document dot get element by ID message, which is the input field here, and we're going to say dot value. Then we can say socket dot send JSON dot stringify, and we're going to have the message field here. Now what we can say is we're going to call a function saying add message to page. We're not going to do that quite yet, but we can have this function just as an outline. And then we're just going to say call add message to page, and the message is going to be me. I'm sending a message, and then just the message content. So in here, we're just going to have message, but we'll deal with this in a minute. Now what we can say is when the WebSocket is open, we're sending this, which is fine, but we need to actually get the value that is put in this input box here, not just person A. So what we're going to say is the same thing, but we're just going to change this field here to be document dot get element by ID name dot value. Now what I'm also going to do is say on the connection of a client where we get the name field, we're just going to console.log json.data.name, and we're just going to say they've connected on the console here of the server. Okay, so now we've done that. If we refresh the page, we're seeing that we aren't being connected yet, but we will be hopefully when we say person A or person 1, then click connect. Then we can see we've got this WebSocket. We send the message name is person 1, and we see here person 1 has connected. So this is working fine at the moment. Now what happens if we create another one of these and say person 2? Now this person isn't connected yet, but now if we click connect, we see person 2 has connected. And here we see announcement, person 2 has joined. So that's working in the way that we want it to. Now what we also want to do is we want the ability to display messages on this document here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to have a div with ID is messages, and we're going to put all our messages in here basically. But another thing that we need to do is add a little bit of styling, because at the moment it's not going to be going down in like descending order. It's going to try and stack up the messages side to side. So all that we're going to say is messages display flex, and then flex direction is column, and each message of the p tag is going to have padding 0, and then margin 0 at the top, 0 to the right, 1 rem to the bottom, and 0 to the left. So now if we save this, now what we're going to say is add message to page. We're just going to say let text message equal document dot create element, and we're using a p tag. Then we can say text message dot append child document dot create text node message. Then what we can say is document dot get element by ID messages dot append child text message. Now, if we refresh this page and say, we need to refresh this page as well actually. But if we say person 1 here, connect, and we say here person 2, connect, we should be seeing here the announcement person 2 has joined. But we haven't actually implemented that logic. That's something I forgot. What we have implemented is if we say hello here and send message, we get hello here. And we're actually also sending hello, but it isn't being received here. So we need to implement that logic now. We can also see that person 1 has connected, person 2 has connected, and that logic is working quite fine now as well. What we're also going to say though is we're giving join messages, which other people are receiving, but we aren't giving messages that people have left. So we can say ws.on close function, wss.clients for each, clients.forEach function client if clients.readyState is equal to WebSocket.open. So we're just saying if they can receive the message. Client.send JSON.stringify, and this is just going to be another announcement. The ws.name has left. So now if we refresh this page, say person 1, and connect, we get person 1 has connected down here. Now if we close this, we should be getting person 1 has disconnected, but we're not going to receive that on that client because we just closed it. So it's being sent to the other clients. I don't think you're going to be able to see it here because we don't have this loaded. So that is being sent. I'm also just going to log this here, console.log, the same message basically, just so we can illustrate that is detecting a logout. So we can say person 1 connect, then if we duplicate this and disconnect from that one, we see we get person 1 has left. So that's working fine. And we should be getting that transmitted to other clients on the WebSocket. So now we've done that, what we need to do is just do some of this front-end logic now. So when we're adding a message to the page, that's when we send a message. We're also sending a message to the other people, but when we receive a message, we also need to add that onto a page. So what we're going to say here instead, we're going to remove that, and we're going to say let JSON data equals json.parse event.data. And now we're going to say if JSON data.message. So if we've got a message, then we're going to say add message to page JSON data.name, which I think we're yet to add to the data that we send, JSON data.message. And then what we can say is otherwise it's going to be announcement, so we can just say add message to page JSON data.announcement. So this should be our front end logic. So now if we look back here, when we receive a message, we're passing the data. If the data is a name, then we're going to say they've connected, we're going to set their name, and we're going to broadcast to the other clients, this person has joined. But if it isn't a name, then we need to deal with that logic as well, because that means a message is being sent. So we're going to say wss.clients.forEach, each client. Then we're going to say if client.readyState is equal to WebSocket.open and WebSocket.name is not equal to client.name. So we don't want to send the same message back basically to the client who sent it. Client.send JSON.stringify name ws.name, so we're identifying the person, message JSON data.message. JSON data.message, there we go. Okay. So now we've done this. If we get a name, then we're transmitting the name and we're setting the name here. And if we get anything else, we're just checking if the client can receive it, which means they need to be in the ready state of open, and they can't have the same name. And if that's true, we're just going to send this JSON string, which is going to have the name of the person who transmitted it and the message that is being sent as well. So now if I reload this and I duplicate it as well, we're going to have person 1 connect and person 2 connect. Now we can see person 2 has joined, is visible on person 1's screen. Person 1 can send a message saying hello, send message, so we can see that they've sent it, and this person can see the message of hello, and this person can send back another message. And they've received this message here as well. So that is that for this video, which was just how we build a basic chat application using WebSockets. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure you like it and subscribe if you haven't, and comment down below if you want to see similar things like this. Maybe if you want to see an extension of this where we have different chat rooms, or we are able to privately message different clients as well. If you want to see that, then please comment that down below. And I'll also be linking the GitHub repository for this code as well. So if you weren't able to follow it exactly, then you'll be able to follow it through there as well.